Hello everyone, I'm Gene Bird and I'm a player and collector of guitars, and sometimes we talk about them here on YouTube. I wanted to show you the collection that I have. So none of these are case queens, they all get played. That's what guitars are made for. Maybe you share that sentiment with me, maybe you don't. But let's have a look at them. Maybe we can start with the Gibson here. Here I have a Gibson's 1960s standard tri-burst Les Paul. These were an exclusive at a Guitar Center, and when you think about an electric guitar, this is probably what you think of. This is an image that a lot of people would get in their minds. This has a traditional look. They've modernized these things a bit, but this is awful beautiful because see, it's got this nice flame in the wood, and this is what people like to think of. It's got a thicker neck. In the 1950s, this guitar, modeled by Les Paul, himself a guitarist, a fancy guitarist at the time, and his wife Mary Ford, they made this neck a little bit, it's a little bit thicker than what we're used to these days. Still, it's not that thick, very comfortable. What else about this guitar? These are humbucking pickups. They have 2 rows of magnets to pick up the signal strength to get rid of noise. Very good, very loud, and not noisy like some of the earliest guitars, but still quite vintage looking. This top part here is made of maple. It's a maple cap, so you can get this pretty top. And then the back is a hard old mahogany wood. Yeah, it's a iconic look, and what can I say about that? The other thing I like about this guitar compared to some of Gibson's others is they have these metal tuners. These metal tuners are very smooth and help it keep it in tune and help you to fine tune it right on the note. There's some instruments like the violin and all that, you have to sit and play with it all day to get the note to sound to be the note that it is, and I hate that. I like things that stay in tune. All right, a quick shout out to my friend Fet for Hire, a YouTuber, graphic designer. Man, I love your stuff. You're a great guy too, great guitarist. He likes Jakey Lee, Ozzy Osbourne, one of his old guitarists. And I too like, you know, they say that it's the people who play the guitar that get us into guitar, and especially buying more guitars, which guitar stores, of course, in the industry like. And that's what happened in this case. For a while I couldn't afford a Gibson Les Paul like you just saw, so instead I got the Epiphone model. Epiphone's kind of cheaper, but wow, is this a quality instrument. And this particular one, you see the signature here on the headstock, that's Alex Lifeson, the guitar of Rush. This is his signature guitar. And it looks pretty much like that Les Paul we seen. Yeah, very much so. The flaming on this one is kind of interesting. And we got a gold hardware, and you recall I like this to see it stay in tune, so you can play this thing and then you can drive these strings to where they're floppy like this, make sort of sound effects and things, and release it. Comes right back into tune. It's beautiful. And it's a beautiful guitar. You can see it's a red, nice hardware. It feels a lot like a Les Paul. You know, this is a Gibson Les Paul virtually, just made by a different country, a different company. It sounds great. Both of these have lots of great high gain sounds. Next we have another big brand. What would you say is the next biggest brand? Fender, I think. Fender, they might have had, who knows, the first electric guitar. As far as I know, they had one called the Broadcaster in the 1950s. Then they had the Telecaster and the Stratocaster. So this is a Stratocaster style guitar, or S style guitar, they're sometimes called. And this is the most famous guitar shape, I would say, after Les Paul. Maybe they're tied. And people prefer this sound because of it has a little bit different sound because it has these single coil pickups, and they're not, the magnets aren't sort of distributed over the string. They're picking what's right here on the string, which gives them more clarity, better highs. And this is a Another one of those signature guitars, this particular Stratocaster. This is a Fender Custom Shop. Got the old Custom Shop logo. Looks like it goes on a car or something. Fender, it's a candy apple red Yngwie Malmsteen Stratocaster. And what guitarists would find interesting about this, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but the frets are sort of scooped out. They call that being scalloped. And I guess they did that a long time ago with instruments. And so it makes it easier to get a hold of the string. As Yngwie would say, okay, I'll say it. He says it allows you to grab the string by the balls. And yeah, a lot of neoclassic rock is played on these, but these things are good for blues too. Nice instrument. Well, the thing about that last instrument, there's a couple things about it. One is it's really expensive, and not everybody has that kind of money. But maybe you're still a fan of the very fast and awesome guitarist, the Yngwie Malmsteen. And so Fender made this other guitar, which is also a signature model of his. This is the vintage white USA Yngwie Stratocaster. You might wonder why they call it whites when it's obviously yellow. But so the story goes that in the 1960s, when they made these old instruments, they began white. And then as time went on, they sort of faded to this yellow color. Same pickups, same sound. You're not getting any more sound if you get the custom shop model. And this one has a little bit deeper scallops. So some people prefer that. Hard to see with the camera, but they're sort of scooped out like this. Yeah, love that guitar, love Yngwie Malmsteen's music. Next on my list is the American Standard Telecaster. This is another Fender guitar, I just mentioned it. Another iconic body shape we have here. Wow, this is beautiful. You can really see the wood grain through that. Just beautiful, isn't it? They stopped making this guitar in 2016 or 2018. I forget which. And they have what they call the Fender Professional Telecaster now. So the Telecaster, turns out, this is used for country playing a lot. This particular model I'm proud of because it has the Fender custom pickups in it. Special, it sound great. This is really light. They make the same guitar, but they call it the Player Series. They make them in Mexico. This one is made in California, turns out though. And the wood is a bit lighter, so easier to play, lots of fun. Yes, this guitar, this is actually the #1 selling body shape in 2024. It took over from the Stratocaster that you saw before, and a guitar that's coming up that we will see that held the place for 4 years. I'll let you know about that when we get there. Yes, and if you were, I was talking about the Player Series, here we have one of those Player Series Telecasters made in Mexico. This one's kind of special though. So when you see this kind of dark material, this wood here, that's a rosewood. If it's really dark, it might be ebony. And those lighter fretboards that you've been seeing, that are sort of yellowish kind of wood, are made of maple. This one in particular though, it has single coil pickups with a very high output, so it's made for playing rock and rockabilly, I guess, but normally it would be. However, this one's kind of special. This one, technically it's not a Fender, it's a Fender Squier Strat, which is the cheaper model of Fender, sort of like Epiphone is the cheaper version supposedly of Gibson. And this one's tuned down 5 piano keys, or for you music theory geeks, a perfect fourth from a regular guitar, so it plays really low sounds. Sounds completely different. All right, some of you will know a very fine music company named Paul Reed Smith. So Paul Reed Smith, that wanted to get in on the action with the Stratocaster, and they found an artist, Mayer. What's that guy's name? Yes, John Mayer. Very popular with the young folks. I don't really listen to his music, but he has an awesome sounding guitar. These pickups, unparalleled Stratocaster sound. They make a sound sometimes referred to as a quack or something, mid-range sounds just It's hard to describe. Maybe we'll listen to it in a second. You'll see. Wow, all sorts of artists use this. This particular model here, Paul Reed Smith is distinctive because it has these birds. I think Paul's mother liked birds or something on there. There's Paul Reed's signature. But no, this is the, on the back. On the back, you'd find this, can you read that? It says John Mayer, that it's his signature instrument. It's called the Silver Sky. And I have modified these. There's only probably like 2 of these in the world. Neil Sean of Journey has one. And, you know, other people must have had this idea. But I don't usually do maintenance on my own guitars, but I installed, without routing it out or anything, I just drilled a couple of holes and followed the instructions. This Floyd Rose whammy bar here, or tremolo bar. Again, it lets everything go completely loose and then come right back into tune. And wow, this thing sounds great. You won't find this kind of thing here, so a lot of times there's just a more easy mellow use, because when people push this thing down on the standard model, even though it's a Paul Reed Smith, they make very fine guitars, but it will go out of tune. Everything will sound like crap when you try to play again. But with this apparatus here is called a Floyd Rose Tremolo, and this will keep your guitar in tune no matter what. You can also wiggle it around and make a, well, we'll experience some of that in a little bit. Popularized by Edward Van Halen. Yes, this particular guitar, the Silver Sky, for like 4 years between 2020 and 2023 was very hard to get a hold of. Most places would be sold out because it was such a popular guitar. It was #1 selling guitar for a while, and this is the #8 selling guitar right now. Maybe the #2 is the cheaper version, the Paul Reed Smith SE or Student Edition. Those are great guitars too, and unless you're just looking for status, you should pick up one of those cheaper models first. And so it happens with the Paul Reed Smiths that they're known for being very beautiful guitars, very solid construction. This is what they call a core model, one of the fancier Paul Reed Smiths. This top, it doesn't look as great as many of them do, but I get a discount because of that. As you can see, it's violet. And we have the birds again, distinctive of the Paul Reed Smith. This guitar is called the Custom 24. This is related to the kind of guitar maybe that Carlos Santana played. He probably still plays these Paul Reed Smiths, but he's got his own model now. These knobs here, they're very easy to turn, frictionless, so you can, when you're finished playing, you can just slide your finger like that and shut off all the sound. And so it's very unusual on a Paul Reed Smith too. Not as unusual anymore, but there's a lot of metal and hard rock players that use these tremolos, Floyd Rose, right here. So this is actually Custom 24 Floyd. It's a bit more rare, and it'll keep your guitar in tune. You know, the other tremolo bars, the cheaper tremolo bars that come on the standard PRS guitars, a lot of players like those, but it's just for a little bit of mellow use, and this is if you want to really swing things wild and make Steve Vai or Joe Satriani kind of a music, or if you want to emulate them or play their music. All the backs of PRSs virtually have the same color of wood on the back. And then once again, this top part is just like a ½ or a ¼ inch of maple on top, I think. And these pickups, Paul Reed Smiths are noted for their versatility with pickups. They can make all kinds of different sounds by switching the switch here. These were made for metal and rock playing though, so they don't have all that versatility that the PRS is known for, this Custom 24 guitar. There's a cheaper student edition of this, and you know, you can actually take out these pickups and put others in. So once I had a version, the student edition, and I took out these pickups and went and bought some fancier ones, the Seymour Duncan brand, at the music store, and put them in, and it sounded great. It sounded great as any of their expensive guitars. But this has really a solid construction when you look like between the neck and the fretboard that's on here, there's no gap at all, and just a really awesome guitar. This is an heirloom. This is going to last for a long time. Alrighty, folks. Next guitar, another rock guitar. This is the Schecter C7 Apocalypse. The finished color is called the Red Rain. Yeah, it's kind of quilty. It's hard to describe what's going on here. I don't know what they do to wood to make it look like this. Probably just paint it. Wow, my lighting just isn't that great. You either get a great reflection off of, it's hard to see that color though. There we go. Once again, Floyd Rose. It's got a couple of pickups here. This one is called a Sustainiac, and what happens is there's a little switches here, and when you flip that on, if you play a note or chord or something, it's just going to go on forever and ever and ever. There's a little circuit in here that I guess keeps vibrating the string at the same frequency you have it. If you flip one of the switches, it'll turn on what's called the second harmonic, and it will really scream like you're feeding back through an amp. Joe Satriani, Steve I, other rockers, they're fans of that sort of thing. And you can see the fret markers here. They have Roman numerals on them in case you get lost. Help show you where to put your fingers. Here's the headstock. Schecter makes a lot of high quality guitars and cheap. This particular one, it has 7 strings on it. One of the strings on the bottom is tuned lower, so you can hit lower sounds. It's got a beautiful swamp ash, I think, wood back here. One of the nuisances here is the Sustainiac requires a 9-volt battery. This 9-volt battery, if you just left it on all the time, would last like 2 days. But most people aren't going to be playing the guitar 24 hours a day, so it lasts quite a while. I like that guitar. It's got a big low frequency response, so it can sound bassy or muddy at times, but awesome quality guitar. So I mentioned the guitarist Joe Satriani a moment ago, and you know I like signature guitars because that's what inspires us to play when you hear great players. This is Joe Satriani's JS, for Joe Satriani, 2480 MCR. Boy, Ibanez, it's an Ibanez guitar, and Ibanez has some very difficult to remember names. MCR stands for Muscle Car Red. It's kind of obvious why they called it that. It's also beautiful in red on the back. You've noticed, of course, some of the necks on these guitars, they have a strip of bubinga wood going through the middle. And when you have different kind of woods and they're all pressed together, you would think it would be more expensive to have a single neck. But when you smash together different type of woods, I guess for the heat expansion and the drying out and moisturizing of a neck and all that, it stays more solid. It's better than just having one solid piece of wood that could warp or I guess play different with the moisture. You guitar fanatics probably know more than me about that. But yeah, so this is wonderful. It has kind of a recessed hole for you to plug your cord into, and that sticks up like this, so you can't accidentally pull the cord out. And this has 24 frets. It goes quite a ways down here. And here's this white thing here, another Sustainiac pickup. And Sustainiac, you remember, that's the one you play a note, lasts forever until you turn it off. Which you can do some very dramatic things in music with that. And again, here's a compartment for a 9-volt battery. I hate having to deal with that, but if I was going to a desert island, I would, and I could only have one guitar of mine to take with me, it would be this one. It's a nice one. This particular one is made in Japan. If you get a guitar that's made in Japan, it's going to be every bit as good as one that's made in the United States, whereas you might expect lower qualities from, say, some guitars made in China. Indonesia is making good guitars. Korea, you would expect to be cheaper, but I don't doubt there's some quality makers there too. All right, I'm guilty that I haven't showed you any acoustic or classic guitars yet, classical guitars, but we're getting there. But we've got another shredder to show you first. If you like playing fast rock music and you like playing modern metal, you couldn't get much better than this. What? Somebody took off the headstock. Careful that there's no string endings there to stick your stuff with. But this is a Strandberg 8-string guitar. And you know, if you want to convince somebody you're great at guitar, then it always helps if you can play guitars with more strings on them than they have. Makes you feel like you're academic or educated or professional or something, huh? What else can I say about this guitar? Strandberg is relatively new to the game. These are Fishman, what are these things called? Yeah, Fishman Confluence pickups. They sound great, lots of clarity, but good for rock tones too. You can turn it up. They are active pickups, so once again, yeah, we have a compartment here for another 9-volt battery. I generally prefer guitars that don't have this 9-volt battery, but when there's something as sexy as this, hey, you got to have it. They're like Pokemon, you got to catch them all, right? Yeah, Strandberg's making a big hit. I was hearing about them all the time. I don't hear about them anymore, but there's a lot of headless guitars imitating this. Other brands are starting to make more headless guitars because these things were popular recently. Okay, another signature guitar. This time I give you a couple of seconds to see if you can tell me to whom this guitar belongs. Well, there's the fellow's name on the headstock. They used to just make imitations of the Queen guitarist Brian May of his guitar called the Red Special. His Red Special is made of a piece of firewood. Not firewood, but a fireplace. You know, they tore a fireplace apart and used the wood from that. And it's beautiful. It has these, I don't know what these pickups are called, but they're special. They sound a bit different than others. A lot of people say you have to have to sound like Brian May of Queen, you have to have a treble booster, special effects pedal, and a Vox AC30 amp. But no, if you have this guitar, these pickups will do it for you. That's all you need. Of course, there's a lot in his fingers too. It's beautiful. This tremolo, it's not that great at staying in tune. Something else remarkable about this is for each of these 3 pickups here, you have one switch that turns them off or on. And you have these other switches that reverse their electrical polarity. So you can, in electrical engineering terms, put them out of phase with each other. And it gives them a weaker, whiny kind of sound. But if you started playing with these and playing this, you would say, hey, I recognize that song. This is from such and such Queen song. And you can read about that online. You know, I'm not an encyclopedia or anything. But yeah, signature guitar. We buy these things because we love the artists that play them. All right, I love classical music, and now we move into the classical guitars. First guitar is a classical guitar. Classical guitars have nylon strings, but this is not what most people would think of when they think of a classical guitar. This guitar is a Godin ACS SA, a MultiAc guitar they call it. So it has a beautiful top, you can see. Over here we have a built-in EQ, and this guitar, in addition to being hooked up normally with electricity to an amplifier to give you amplified classical guitar sound, it also has a 11-pin guitar synthesizer output, so you can hook it up to a guitar synthesizer and make the guitar play saxophones or drums or whatever you want. This is strung with a different type of string. Most of this is not made of metal. At least 3 of these strings are just nylon or plastic. nylon. Is nylon plastic? I don't know. And then some of them are, I think, are nylon wrapped in metal, but they have a very different sound. Yeah, and you can get that sound. So what happened is, as classical guitars are transitioning to playing electric guitars, they wanted to give them something to where these strings, they're farther apart from each other than a typical electric guitar would be, so that you can play classical music on them. And this can help classical people amplify their music or transition it over to electric. Oh yeah, nearly. Yeah, this is awesome. It's got this built-in EQ, but you know what that means. And the switches between, like, there's a piezoelectric pickup. That means it touches the mechanical vibrations. Instead of sending off electricity to somewhere over here, the mechanical vibrations get turned directly into electricity by pressing against a transducer. On the back, of course, to make all that happen, they have another 9-volt battery. I hate those things, as you know. But a really nice guitar. There's a band, as I understand, called Polyphia that is making this sort of guitar come back into popularity. And as far as I know, Godin was the only a Canadian company, was the only guitar company making these things a bit ago, and I got them when they weren't as popular. Now you can get something similar for cheaper than what I got this. Okay, but yeah, that wasn't a real classical guitar, I guess. This is what you would think of as a classical guitar. Oh, that's the fancy one. Yeah, this is the fancier of two that I'm going to show you. This is Bubinga wood, like the little strip of the wood that went down through the neck of the Joe Satriani guitar on the back and the sides. And here on the top you have a beautiful darker color red cedar that's on the top. You know, classical guitars are kind of like a drum, and so you make the sides and the back of hard stuff, and the top of it vibrates. And that vibration causes the air columns inside this guitar to vibrate and come out the sound hole here. Oh yeah, this is a beautiful thing. But this guitar, this is a very, very affordable guitar. However, it's made by what is this one? This is a Lucero LC230S. That would be on the sticker in there. The 200 series from Lucero. Luceros are really cheap, made in China classical guitars, but they just sound awesome. And you can get that one runs like $350, but you can get an even cheaper version of a Lucero called the LC100 that plays just as great. This LC100 guitar, I just got it to have I wanted a classical guitar, I wanted to get into it cheap. Wow, look at this beautiful, like a yellow top. This is not like a standard guitar classical top. It's more beautiful than what I'm used to seeing. You can see all the grain going straight vertically up all the way across. How did they do that? I do not know. It's absolutely beautiful. And guess what? It plays like a $1,000 instrument, but it only costs like 120 bucks. The Lucero LC100. Man, I'm into quality instruments, but you know, this, just because something's a quality instrument doesn't mean that it has to be expensive. This is beautiful. Yeah, I'll play this in another clip for you. It's great. Okay, those were the classical guitars with nylon strings, but they do make acoustic guitars with steel strings. And if you ask somebody what is the finest acoustic guitar, the finest sounding one that you can get, there's going to be a split. There's several companies, Guild, Martin, Taylor. So in particular, Martin is famous. A lot of like the Beatles and all that use. Paul McCartney recorded Blackbird with the Martin D28, and that's what we have here. So these Martin guitars, they have a better sort of a bass response. No holes for electricity coming out of this. This is just a fine. The D28 Wow, it smells great too. It smells like wood. Of course, it's made of wood, right? Martin guitars. The D28, wow, really famous. It has a bassy sort of tone. There's some like a X bracing that you can't see that crisscrosses like this inside, and it's a delicate. You want to make sure this isn't 50% humidity, or it could crack eventually on you. I played that. It has sort of a bass tone compared to the other popular guitar. Some people are not Martin fans. They kind of split. Either you're a Martin fan or you're a Taylor fan. And so the Taylors are more jangly and have a high-end frequency response. I mean, they have some crystally highs. And this is a Taylor 414 CE. The CE refers to the body shape. It is very easy to play, and it has an electrical circuit and has some EQ right inside it, you know, for adjusting the volume, the bass, and the treble. And it has a more sparkly high end. They sell some very small versions of these, and these things are very high quality. And so when I first got one, I got one called a Baby Taylor. And in fact, my daughter has a Baby Martin back there somewhere. And when I heard how jangly and beautiful the playing was, I didn't understand why these guitars would cost so much. But after hearing it, I understand their value. And so that convinced me to get one of these guys. Yeah, this Taylor, though, it is easier. It's not named after Taylor Swift. It is easier to play than the Martin when you press down the strings, and you can do all kinds of things with them, and they won't hurt your fingers. I don't know why. You would think that just the thickness of the string would determine how hard it would be to press these down, but I always have a hard time playing Martins. I'm a very experienced guitar player, 40 years, and Martins hurt my fingers sometimes, but these Taylors are great. There's electricity coming out of this bottom jack here is where you can plug it in, where it holds the strap. And yeah, that's a beautiful Taylor guitar. My lighting isn't great. You can see a lot of these guitars online in YouTube videos. So let's go to the next one. All right, time to get down to the low end, get funky. We also have a couple of bass guitars in the studio. Probably the best known bass guitars are Fender guitars. And this is a Fender jazz bass. Don't know why they call it a jazz bass. This one is made in Mexico, but it's wonderful. I suspect the American one is a little bit lighter, but this one will sound every bit as good. And you can see the figuring in the wood here. Beautiful, nice and beautiful and natural. A jazz bass has 2 pickups, which means you can get a wide variety of sounds. The Fender makes another kind of, so this is the jazz bass, or they might call the J bass, musicians. And there's another type called the P bass that only has 1 pickup, called a precision bass. And if I'm a big fan of Rush. I think Geddy Lee likes that. You know, he's gone back and forth, but I think his signature model's a P bass. This is not a Geddy Lee signature model, though you can pick up a signature model Geddy Lee for $1,200. But you can make this thing sound by adjusting the controls in your amp, maybe some effects. You can make it sound like a P bass or just about anything you want to, though. That's why I felt it was necessary to get one of those. However, another cool brand of bass is the Ernie Ball Music Man's Stingray bass. And here's when oh boy, when you think of a Stingray bass, you think of, yeah, these pickups, how they look here, and this circular pick guard here, characteristic of it. They kind of copied with the knobs the look of the Fender bass. And this thing just sounds great, but once again, look at the figuring in that wood. Man, it's so beautiful. 9-volt battery up in here. And these things are very heavy. This particular one is very heavy, a lot more heavy than the Fender bass. And a lot of popular bass players online will be playing these things too. This sounds good most of the time, but there's some string buzz in here sometimes. I've tried like raising up these strings, the action, lowering them down, doing different things. It might be the way I play. But if you snap it or if you pluck across like this, then it doesn't buzz as much. But if you snap it a little bit or you play it too hard, then it can make a buzzy noise. But it's still great, and it was so beautiful. You know, I just had to have it even with that problem. And that pretty much finishes it up for the guitar collections. You know. Well, thank you for watching. Special shout out to my friend Fet for Hire and his guitar playing that inspired me to record this amateur video. My friends Stark of Iron, Anti-Derivative Jill, and Canadian Spider-Man, of course, and Wes Cagle, all my friends. Hope you have a great day.